ESG Services is a launch partner for Amazon Web Services EC2 dedicated hosts, and we thank you again for joining us and will begin shortly. First, let me cover a few housekeeping items. All guests are join in listen-only mode, but our team is monitoring the chat window for live Q&A, which will be addressed in the second half of the session. You are also welcome to email me directly at ehunter@csgservices.com, and I will have our internal team of experts answer your question directly. I'd now like to introduce today's presenters, Dennis Tortop, Head of Worldwide Sales for the Microsoft Platform at AWS, and Scott Zimmerman, who is a Solutions Architect for AWS. As a reminder, any questions during this webinar, please email ehunter@csgservices.com. Dennis, I'll now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Erin. Hi there, really appreciate you all joining us today. As Erin mentioned, we're going to talk about corporate applications on AWS, including SharePoint and Exchange. Today's agenda will go over the benefits of hosting corporate applications on AWS instead of on-premises or in outsourced data centers. We'll also talk about leveraging your own SPLA, Service Provider License Agreement, EA, Enterprise Agreement, and HISV, Hosted ISV Agreement, on AWS to enjoy Amazon EC2 Linux rates on Windows instances. And then we'll also tell you about technical and licensing ways to bring your own licenses to the AWS cloud, including Windows Server, SharePoint, and more. A few words about why you should run SharePoint and Exchange on AWS. Now, a lot of our customers do that because we offer broad and deep security services that comply with a multitude of regulatory requirements, including a cloud dedicated for government workloads, our GovCloud. We also allow you to bring your own licenses, reduce total cost of ownership, and trade capital expense for operating expense. AWS is compatible with customizations and third-party add-ons, and a lot of multi-tenant email services may not be compatible with those. You or your customers would like to take advantage of the cloud and don't want to give up the third-party add-ons, customized add-ons that you have. AWS is the right place. Last but not least, AWS increases agility and embraces DevOps practices for you to bring to the cloud, which again may not be possible elsewhere. With that said, we're going to go a little bit higher level and tell you about Amazon Web Services and why AWS might be a good fit for your organization before we drill into those SharePoint Exchange corporate apps specific value pillars. Amazon Web Services is a clear leader in the cloud industry with over 9.5 years of experience now in delivering cloud services. We've got 32 availability zones, which are the equivalent of data centers spanning 12 regions around the world. We most recently announced a number of additional ones that will be launched in 2016, bringing the number further up. We had over 500 service improvements in 2014 and over 700 service improvements last year in 2015. And we're able to deliver 48,000 IOPS, for instance, with consistency, meaning we got really thick walls between our virtual machines, and we're able to deliver very high performance compute and storage to our customers. We've got a broad ecosystem with over 1 million customers across more than 190 countries. We've got thousands of consulting and technology partners enrolled in our AWS partner network we call APN. We're a very customer-focused company, and we saved over $350 million for our customers based on over 2 million AWS Trusted Advisor notifications. Trusted Advisor is a tool that we have that runs in the background that is free of charge for our customers, looking for areas for optimization and saving our customers money by asking them to shut down services that they're not using. Since 2006, we had 48 price reductions. So as we benefit from the scale of our cloud and get economies of scale, we give this back to our customers. Amazon Web Services is trusted by enterprises, hot startups, and government organizations alike around the world. Here are some big name logos that we have from our commercial industry customers, including NASDAQ, Dole, Shell, Lionsgate, and Pfizer, among many others. A few words about the AWS Services Framework. A lot of our customers come to AWS for our two core, better-known products, EC2 and S3. EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. It's our compute offering. S3 stands for Simple Storage Service, and it's our core storage offering. And we do have other offerings surrounding EC2 and S3. As I like to say, a lot of our customers, like I said, come for EC2 and S3, and stay for all the other services surrounding them. We got over 50, but just to highlight a few that are relevant to today's topic, RDS, Relational Database Services, is a managed database offering. ELB, Elastic Load Balancer, is a load balancing offering. Direct Connect allows you to connect your data center over to ours over private lines versus the public internet, giving you better performance and better security. VPC, our virtual private cloud offering, allowing you to use our network as an extension of yours, including IP address spaces. CloudFormation allows you to quickly script repeatable tasks and see them through to closure and roll them back if they don't work. Auto-scaling allows you to scale up and down your infrastructure on Amazon Web Services, and allowing you to take advantage of the elasticity of the cloud. When the workloads increase, we automatically scale it up, and when they go back down, we automatically scale it down, allowing you to tap into economies of scale of the cloud. On the right-hand side, we've got EBS, Elastic Block Storage, basically a type of storage that you can attach and detach to and from your instances. If one instance goes down or you choose to take it down, you can take that storage volume and attach it to another instance, giving you a lot of flexibility and also high performance. OpsWorks is a key pillar of our DevOps story and allows you to do rapid development and testing, code check-ins, and etc. in the cloud. Elastic Beanstalk is our platform as a service offering supporting .NET, PHP, Java, and many other programming languages. IAM, Identity Access Management, allows you to have granular permissions for your resources and users on your AWS network. VM import and export allows you to import your existing VMs 20 at a time to EC2 using tools that do conversion from ESX, Hyper-V, and alike. We've got many different plugins, including those for vCenter and System Center that allow you to use your existing tools to manage your infrastructure sitting on AWS. Like I said, AWS can act as an extension of your existing data center. It is possible to connect your data center to ours using all the tools that I just mentioned, including Direct Connect, VM import and export, and VPC, and then transfer data back and forth between the AWS cloud and your data center. For initial migrations, if you have a lot of data to transfer, incoming data transfers are free, in case you didn't know. We also have another option called Snowball, which allows you to copy your data to a disk and overnight it over to us, and we make this experience very smooth for you. With that said, I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, Scott Zimmerman, who's a solutions architect at AWS, to tell you more about running corporate applications, including SharePoint and Exchange on AWS.
Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. As Dennis mentioned, I'm going to go through the next section of the deck where we're focusing on corporate applications. So let's start by saying, what do we mean by that? What is a corporate application? Well, just loosely defined here, let's say that it is enterprise software developed by an ISV that are used for collaboration or productivity. So this includes things such as SharePoint, Exchange Server, Microsoft Skype, which is now was formerly called Lync, but it's now called Skype for Business. It also includes Dynamics CRM, and it could include off-the-shelf .NET applications that you may run for accounting and other business purposes. Now, AWS lets you run these corporate applications more efficiently and flexibly while you're still maintaining the management and the control that you have or you're familiar with in an on-premise environment. And we're going to talk a little bit and give some examples of how that works. These are some of the benefits of hosting your corporate applications on AWS rather than running them on-premise yourselves. So the main, or some of the key things that we want to talk about are reducing costs, improving security, deploying and being able to scale your applications with ease. That means scale up and down, as Dennis mentioned, the auto-scaling service, and that's a really key piece there. Also, you can actually improve performance of your applications by running them in AWS. And then additionally, leveraging existing investments, tools, and processes. So you may be able to bring your own license of your software applications into the cloud, and you've already got your familiar tools and processes, and you'll find that the AWS cloud, particularly the Windows environment, works exactly like your Windows Server environment on-premise. It's actually very enlightening to try that out and find out how brilliant it is to have a home for your Windows Server applications running in AWS. And I'd like to show you a few slides about some customers that are achieving these kinds of benefits. So some of the key bullet points that I want to highlight about reducing costs are that you don't have to provision your scale of your environment up front. So this is really important. In a traditional on-premise environment, you have to estimate what your peak load will be months from now so that you can provision and requisition those resources and stand them up and have them ready for that peak load when and if it hits. Well, in the cloud, there's a different model. Because the cloud is very elastic, you can scale up and down and very closely match your demand curve without ever having to overpay or be underutilized or have more provision than you need. Now, the other thing is, again, we're going to talk about leveraging your existing licenses. So you can bring those under certain programs with Microsoft, for example, the mobility, you can bring those licenses into the cloud. And you'll only pay for what you use, and you'll never get locked into a contract with AWS because it's on demand. Now, another key point that we want to bring out is about improving security. The fact is that, as you see in the quote, there are many customers who say that they could never achieve on their own the level of security that the AWS networking and infrastructure and data centers provide. So that's important to point out, is we focus on securing the cloud and you focus on securing what's in the cloud, meaning your applications. So you're still responsible for your user access controls and that sort, but AWS takes care of securing the cloud itself. We provide strong encryption. In almost all of our services are fully encrypted with 256-bit, and we virtually isolate your applications and your data, and we comply with several regulatory and security certifications that you can see on our website. We have a detailed white paper on security that goes much more depth into this. Now, another thing that's really nice is being able to deploy and scale with ease. So, like I said, it's very elastic. That means you can really match your demand curve to the environment that you're paying for. You can automate complex and routine tasks. This is really nice. We call this DevOps, and Dennis mentioned this earlier. What the benefit of DevOps is, let me give you an example. Let's say you're looking at SharePoint 2016, and you're thinking about doing a demonstration of it for management to evaluate if they're ready to migrate to SharePoint 2016. Well, with AWS, you can automatically deploy your SharePoint farm before lunch, and then you can do your demo, you can think about that and take it down as soon as you're not doing your demo anymore and bring it back whenever you need it. That's really the benefit of the DevOps philosophy, because you can automatically and instantaneously scale up and down. So you can just literally turn a SharePoint farm off and on for a dev or a test environment. That means you could turn them off on the weekend and not be paying for them. And Dennis mentioned our availability zones. We currently have 32 around the world. So that gives you the ability to run low latency and high availability applications like SharePoint and SQL Server Always On and Exchange Server. Now, talking about performance is important as well as security. And again, you want to be able to route your users to the nearest availability zone or edge location. AWS has 53 edge locations around the world for our content delivery network, which is called CloudFront, and you can take advantage of that with SharePoint and other .NET applications where you're serving content out to mobile employees or partners and customers. You can also utilize our S3 storage service for blob offloading in SharePoint, so you don't actually have to put your blobs in the database. Now that means that you can get better performance on your SQL Server instances without having to overburden them with the storage of all of the massive amounts of data that some people would like to put in SharePoint. We also have a couple of services for dedicated low latency network connections, and one of the key ones there is called Direct Connect. That's very important for directly connecting your on-premise environment to the AWS cloud. So you get increased security, you get low latency and performance, and you can actually set up your own route tables in AWS. It's very easy to do. So you can have all of your AWS resources be exactly like an extension of your own on-premise data center, and you don't even have to provide internet routing through the AWS resources in your own virtual private cloud. An additional benefit is because our environment is so closely models exactly how you run Windows Server applications on-premise, you can use your existing skill sets and tools and processes. In fact, Slalom is one of our large consulting partners, and they did a massive migration of SharePoint sites for themselves. I believe it was 12,000 SharePoint sites that they had. And the quote here shows that they were even unaware that they had moved their platform from being on-premise to being AWS. There was zero impact on their users. Now, you may wonder, well, how do you do that in the cloud? A key thing that we provide is the ability for you to run your Active Directory in AWS, very simply. We give you a few options on this. We have a service called Directory Services that has a couple of different options, and that's a fully managed service. But in addition to that, you can also install Active Directory on Windows Server in EC2, and you can run your own AD, for example, to support SQL Server Always On or SharePoint. Another thing to keep in mind is you don't have to launch your Windows Server as a standard image that we provide with what we call an Amazon machine image, but you can actually import your own from Hyper-V or VMware. So if you have a pre-built server image that you like, you can import that in with our VM import and export service. And Dennis is going to talk in a moment here about leveraging your license and infrastructure. Go ahead, Dennis.
We have the first polls now open, so please take a moment to see the question directly within the Adobe Connect window. Please note if you are viewing in full screen mode, you may have to adjust the presentation to see the poll. We'll leave the poll open for 30 seconds. Which of the following benefits of running corporate applications on AWS is most intriguing to your organization?
Thank you, Aaron. This is Dennis Tortop again. While you guys are working on the question, I'll get started on the licensing options on AWS. AWS offers you a few different options. The most popular one is buying your licenses from AWS. It is possible to bring your existing license to AWS as well, which is what we're going to talk about next. You can buy Windows Server plus SQL Server from AWS with EC2 and RDS instances. EC2 is our compute offering. RDS is our managed database as a service offering. In case you choose to do that path, AWS will manage licensing and compliance for you, and we support many current and legacy versions of both Windows Server as well as SQL Server. We leverage the per core licensing of Microsoft, so Windows Server or SQL Server client access licenses, CALs or SALs, are not required. This scenario is for unlimited users, ideal for websites or third-party services. Another method is bringing your existing licenses to AWS, and there's more than one way you could do that. Depending on your license type, if you have Microsoft license mobility for software assurance, or you have your licenses on dedicated AWS infrastructure, you can use existing Microsoft licenses on AWS and enjoy several different benefits. The first one is taking advantage of the cloud while still purchasing perpetual licenses, or SPLA. You can extend the life cycle of your software without additional hardware costs. That's basically one of our core value props at AWS. And then you can expedite your migration to the cloud by using existing virtual machine images. That's an important nuance. For you to bring your own existing virtual machine images, you would also have to bring your own licenses. That's something that is required by Microsoft. If you like to use your own licenses, then the only way you could do that is by bringing the entire virtual machine, including the software bits that go with your software licenses, activated against your key management servers or Microsoft's. Microsoft License Mobility is a feature of Microsoft Software Assurance, basically their support contract. And it allows you to deploy licenses purchased for on-premises environments into cloud environments. It can be used to bring a variety of software products, including SQL Server, Exchange, SharePoint, System Center, and Dynamics, but not Office or Windows. Microsoft License Mobility is what is known as a 90-day reassignment rule. Once a license has been assigned to a server, it cannot be reassigned for 90 days. Many experts interpret the reassignment rule as a license being moved to another server, but the language and Microsoft license agreements are pretty vague, and they just spell out reassignment without clarifying further. So if you'd like to interpret this as a license not being moved to another server, I think you should definitely evaluate our dedicated host offering, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So before we move on to dedicated infrastructure, let's check out the poll questions and see how you responded to the benefits of running corporate apps on AWS. It sounds like the winner is trading infrastructure CapEx for OpEx. Our audience today would like to enjoy expenses through OpEx versus CapEx and not having to pay upfront for hardware, and then followed by versions without having to replace hardware. We indeed keep our hardware up to date. We recently announced the X family of instances with up to 2 terabytes of RAM, pretty powerful. And then we continually innovate both our hardware and software platforms. And as an AWS customer, you automatically take advantage of these effortlessly. And then CapEx versus OpEx, of course, very important for many of our customers to do IT spending on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, based on usage versus the sunk cost, which is typically optimized for peak performance versus the current performance that is needed. Now, all that said, talking about CapEx and OpEx, it is also possible to consume our services as CapEx versus OpEx. This is kind of where dedicated infrastructure comes in. Our dedicated hosts are pieces of hardware within our data center that can be dedicated to you for up to 3 years, allowing you to tap into CapEx from a tax perspective versus OpEx, if that's what you wish. There's a subset of our customers that expressed interest in that. That's one reason we launched dedicated infrastructure, dedicated hosts. Another reason we launched dedicated hosts very recently is because it gives you more flexibility when it comes to Microsoft licensing. So let's talk about that. Amazon EC2 dedicated hosts will give you access to physical servers with the EC2 capacity fully dedicated to your use, whether you use it or not. So it's basically a reservation that you made, kind of similar to managed hosting offerings out there today. And then we let you have control over how instances are placed on a physical server. Instances is basically our way of calling virtual machines. So you can decide where your virtual machine goes as you launch it, if you use dedicated hosts. If you don't, then we decide it for you. You can continue to use the same server over time, and even when service instances are stopped and restarted. We talked about the 90-day reassignment rule. So if you like to assign your virtual machines to the same server over a 90-day period or longer, up to 3 years really, then that is definitely possible with dedicated hosts. It integrates well with VM import and export, so you can move existing virtual machine images, including software license keys, to AWS, allowing you to bring your own licenses, including operating systems, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows Server, you name it. On this very slide on the left-hand side, you see the standard Amazon instances where it is possible for multiple customers to share the same physical hardware, of course, in an isolated fashion, but for many different virtual machines. It could be that there are 8 virtual machines or 6 virtual machines sitting on the same physical hardware, all belonging to a different customer. And if you'd like to have control over it, then dedicated host is a good option. On the right-hand side, you see a dedicated host that is dedicated to you. You could basically have a single tenant server hosting instances for only your workloads, and you can determine which host instances run on. And then you pay per host versus pay virtual machine. Pay per virtual machine. Dedicated hosts give you license flexibility as well. The instance host affinity allows you to comply with the 90-day rule. If you don't wish to reassign your virtual machines, you don't need to. Whereas in our standard tenancy, you don't have control over it. We give you exactly how many cores, how many sockets in each physical host. So that allows you, if you're on SPLA today, I know many of you are, that allows you with basically having accurate reporting for your SPLA from a physical perspective, because otherwise we only give you virtual CPUs and we use hyper-threading. So the number of virtual CPUs may be higher than the number of physical CPUs in a given server, and in that regard, using dedicated hosts allows you to tap into savings for licenses where physical CPU licenses is allowed. And a lot of times in Microsoft world, that is the case. Placement controls ensure that instances run on the server that you want them to. That way, you meet compliance and regulatory requirements. And we also have a piece of software that is available to you called AWS Config that allows you to record when instances start, stop, or terminated for license reporting and true ups and true downs. Intermedia is one partner, a service provider partner, that recently took advantage of dedicated hosts. Intermedia is in the business of hosting Exchange, SharePoint, and websites. And earlier this month, they announced the availability of dedicated Exchange on AWS, tapping into dedicated hosts. They offer an Exchange as a service offering on a single tenant cloud, something that our customers are looking for and expressed interest in. And they're allowing SMB and enterprise customers alike to tap into high customization features that a dedicated tenancy offers them that may not be available to them in multi-tenant software as a service offerings from other providers. This new offering has already been recognized by Information Week and 451 Research, and it is made possible by AWS's dedicated hosts. This is a simple, best practice, something that you feel good about. If you'd like to do something similar for your offerings and make it available to your customers with your own branding, that is certainly possible. If you'd like to co-brand it, that is certainly possible as well. But in the case of Intermedia, it is co-branded, or they let their customers know that the offering is powered by AWS. You don't need to if you don't want to. With that, back to Aaron.
Thank you, Dennis. We've now opened up our second poll. Are you considering a move to a cloud environment for any of the following reasons? Please select all that apply. And while we're waiting for everyone to input their answers for this, I just wanted to thank you both, Dennis and Scott, again. If we could go ahead and advance to talk a little bit about the Amazon Partner Network. We recommend signing up for the Amazon Partner Network at aws.amazon.com/network or APN, a global partner program for AWS. It is focused on helping partners build a successful AWS-based business by providing great business, technical, marketing, and GTM support. APN is a tiered program comprised of consulting and technology partners who graduate through the tiers based on their level of engagement with AWS. In addition, partners can join fundamental programs designed to support their unique AWS-based business. Learn more about APN and partner programs below. Feel free to email me directly for more information, and I'll have our APN team follow up with you directly. Now let's move on to a final Q&A with Dennis and Scott. And if you have not already, please use the chat window to post your questions. And as we conclude, can you please answer our final poll regarding your satisfaction with today's session? This will be up soon. And feel free to email me at ehunter@csgservices.com with additional questions or to request copies of today's slide deck. Thank you all for attending. This will conclude today's session on corporate applications on AWS.